We come to our Life and Doctrine segment, so I've jumped up for 5 minutes. Let's see, start the clock and see how we go. 5 minutes just to talk about things that need to be talked about every now and then. This term, we've been thinking through the bulletin that we collect on the way in every week. And we spent 4 weeks, if you remember, thinking all around this bulletin and all the different bits and pieces are written there. And then we had a couple of weeks break, and now we're back for the next 6 weeks. We're going to think on the one thing we haven't thought of yet is the front page of this bulletin, what we call there our order of service. What falls under that title there, order of service, on the front page every week is basically, this is our liturgy that we're going to walk through when we do our worship service every Sunday. So we're going to think through for the next 6 weeks the different things in our liturgy so that we think and understand, I guess, and reflect on why we do these things when we come together for worship, and for that matter, why we don't just do sort of anything else, like other ideas that we might feel like doing when we come together. This week we're going to start with a call to worship at the top. Why do we do a call to worship, and what is a call to worship? The answers to both those things kind of come together. We do it because it's all through Scripture, and that's what it is too. It's all through Scripture. It's God calling his people to gather together into the same room at the same time. God calls his people to assemble before him, and he calls them because he wants them to worship him. And so we live our lives as Christians. Every day we strive to live moment by moment lives of worship to our God in the way that we follow Jesus and surrender to his word. That is absolutely for sure, Romans chapter 12. But so too, all through the Scriptures, God calls us together for corporate worship. And so he wants us to be gathered together in a community together before him to lift up our thanks for him, doing all the things that he does for us, to give our praise to him, to glorify him, because that's where all glory is due, and through all of that, to worship him. So it's a call to worship. And you'll note that we take them from Scripture. It's not just sort of whoever's leading the service and their sort of thoughts for the Sunday or anything like that. They're verses of Scripture. And if you pay much attention to these things and if you've got a really great attendance here, you might realise that we don't really double up that much on these calls to worship. There's a fresh one each week because I tell you, they are absolutely all through Scripture. All the way through the Bible, you read these in the Psalms, in Chronicles, even in Revelation and so forth. You read of God calling his people together for worship and just telling them, of course, the great truths as to why they would want to gather together and worship him. So that's what it is, and that's why we do it. It gets us ready. It helps us to remember why we have come together for this service. We sort of tend to do the announcements first, therefore, so that we can get that housekeeping, as Joseph said, out of the way, so that we can now focus ourselves on what we've come here to do primarily, is to worship our God. With the added wonderful thing for us, though, is that we build each other up in our faith. We edify one another as we gather together in church. So that's what it is, and that's why we do it. It gets us ready to now focus on what we're about to do for the rest of this liturgy, which we'll talk about in the coming weeks. It helps us, therefore, to remember that God does call us to do what we're here doing. It helps us to remember, therefore, that God is pleased with people like us gathering together and lifting up our worship to him. He calls us to do it, and that's because he delights in it. And so we should get a sense, just from the call to worship, should get a sense right there at the beginning of our service each Sunday that God is present with us in a particular way now that is just slightly elevated on what was happening 15 minutes before while we're trying to find a car park and so forth. Something special is happening now. God is with us, and more to the point, God is pleased with what we're doing here. As broken and as flawed as it may be, as prickly as we might be as we try to get into the same room, with all our sort of humble aspects of what we do lift up to him in this worship, God calls us to do it, and he is pleased with what we're doing. So we should feel the sense of God's joy with us as we indeed lift ourselves up in joy as we focus ourselves on our God over this time of worship. Was anyone taking time? I think I'm under. I think it's good. I'll hand back over to Joseph. That's Life and Doctrine this week. There's more to come, the rest of the liturgy, the next 5 weeks, but it's time for the church prayer.